Hello, and welcome to another edition of PentaLive from Pentalog. I'm Peter Green in New York, and we're back with DEF CON 19, a series of talks to introduce you to tools your company can use to survive and thrive in the era of COVID-19. Even as we're seeing the last few weeks that, or even the past week, that many countries and some U.S. states are starting to go back to work and reopen. Even so, it's pretty clear that business practices are never going to be the same, and a lot of people will be working externally, out of the office, outsourcing, offshoring, all that kind of thing. So today we wanted to talk about some more tools that you can use to manage a workforce that may not be all in the same room. I'll be back after the short break with our guest Vasile Putina, who is CTO of the Pentalog software factory and an expert in all kinds of things remote and in how to make teams work together better. Hi, and welcome to PentaLive with Pentalog. I'm Peter Green in New York, and our guest today is Vasile Putina.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, and Vasile is coming to us from Chisinau in Moldova. So talk about remote working. Welcome, Vasile. And also, just before we go any further, I want to remind whoever's with us today that if you have any questions you'd like to ask Vasile, please put them into the chat next to this webcast, and our producer in Brooklyn, Christelle Luzeau, will interrupt me and read some questions to Vasile. So please turn this into a multi-directional conversation. Thanks. So Vasile, today we're going to talk about something that's called the collaboration framework. Rather than give a big, long introduction, let's just start with the basics. Can you tell us what a collaboration framework is? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. The main idea is that before starting building a good product, we should make sure that we are building a great team, okay? And in order to build a great team, first of all, we should get aligned on how we are going to work together. Who will do what, how we are going to deliver what product, and more specifically, what are the rules we are going to respect together and how we are going to check the efficiency of the rules. So all this way of working together is built in a, let's call it a document. So, and that's accessible for the entire team, and it's supporting the collaboration through the entire value chain and the entire life cycle.
So does this exist as a separate piece of paper? Is it a wiki? Is it a document set in stone? Does it evolve? What does it look like, first of all?
Yeah, first of all, it's important to say that it's a live artifact. It's a live document. We prefer to keep it in a wiki in order to make everyone able to adjust it, to share it, and to consult it. So it's a live artifact.
And who creates it? Who owns it? Is it something that's done by when you're a company like yours, which does offshoring of software development and other IT responsibilities, would you do it or would the client do it? Or if it was being done internally within a company, which piece of the equation creates the document?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, we have a template, and in this template there are many rules, good practices which are common for all our projects. And normally, even before starting a collaboration, during the marketing activities, we are using elements from this document. That's helping us to align from even starting the collaboration on the expectations. And step-by-step elements from this document are discussed during the pre-sales phase, during the project launch, and after, of course, during the project run. So, and the document specific for the project is built on top of the core rules by adding and adjusting and making it available for everyone.
So why isn't this part of the contract or the statement of work that's sort of this signed document that you start off with? Why would it be separate?
Yeah, very, very good question. So it's also a challenge on our side. First of all, I think it makes sense to mention that they should be aligned. So all the contractual documents and collaboration framework, they should be aligned. And on our side, we are doing our best to make sure that they are aligned on main elements. However, you cannot put in the contractual documents all the details regarding the collaboration, and most specifically the ones which are going to change. Yeah, for example, we can start by having a set of roles and responsibilities, and step by step, we can add more other responsibilities and roles. And we can't change the contract, every day, every week. So that's why in the contract, we'll keep the main elements, the legal part of the collaboration, and the more operational part, the governance part will be kept in this collaboration framework, and we'll keep always the alignment between them.
It's funny. It seems like this is something everybody would know would exist, and yet it doesn't. It isn't something that everybody uses. Is it something everybody needs?
In fact, there's many items which are kind of common sense, seems obvious. It's really obvious to be aligned on a collaboration. And the need itself is quite old, and we always try to get aligned on the expectations. What's different here, that of course we'll include everything related to the expectations and roles and so on. What's more interesting, that we capitalized our experience, and we also are making sure that our previous experience is took into account when we are building a new project. And when we know, for example, that in order to have a good collaboration is a must to have a list of rules, and I'll provide some examples, we'll insist on this from the very beginning. And in fact, it's a kind of capitalization of the good practices from our experience, but also from the IT industry as well, because we don't invent everything.
Yeah.
We are making sure that we use what makes more sense for us.
What's an example of the kind of thing that would be in the collaboration framework, but not in your contract or your statement of work? Like, take a recent project you've worked on, maybe.
As we are discussing about the digital products, I'll take an example related to this topic. So, for example, we want to have visibility on technical debt, and to make sure that the decisions on technical debt are made by technical people, but together with business guys. Okay, what's this and why it's important? In fact, the idea of technical debt is quite obvious. It's just, you can imagine it as the cost of redoing some work, right? Because we wanted to do something quick and dirty, for example, and that's not just a technical decision, as it may seem to be. It's also a business decision, because if we'll go by using this quick and dirty idea, at one moment the business will have to pay for this rework. Okay, you could start by doing a proof of concept just to validate some assumptions. But before deploying it for millions of users, you'll have to redo the architecture. And for us, it's important to make sure that the business is aware and the business is also participating in this decision-making process, because they are concerned. It's just an example.
Okay. Let me just step out for 1 second and just say to all our viewers and listeners, please, if you have questions, please write them into the chat and send them to our producer, Christelle Lazo. Thanks. So, there are a lot of constraints, increasingly more constraints on software and IT development projects. Things have to move faster. They have to be more flexible. production cycles are shorter, costs are tighter. How does a collaboration framework help you deal with those constraints and any others that you'd want to tell me about?
Yeah. First of all, it's important to say that our collaboration framework is built on agility. Okay, so we learned that in this period, agility is a must. Okay, and whatever we are building and we are adding the collaboration framework are based on agile rules, are based on the agile tools, mindset, and so on. Okay, and for example, we can say that for one project, it makes more sense to use as a core rules the ones from Scrum. Okay, and we'll use the Scrum rules, we'll use the Agile mindset, and we'll build on top on those rules with our ones. Okay, so the response would be, so the embedded agility is helping us to face the challenge you mentioned, and the iterative approach and so on. So it's built in, yeah.
In this COVID era, and you guys have sort of pioneered this pre-COVID of remote working, of teams that are not in the same place geographically, that may never actually meet. There are issues that come up of isolation, confusion, fragmentation of understanding of the project. How does having a collaboration framework help with some of these issues of coordinating and motivating remote teams?
Yeah, so first of all, having this collaboration framework in place from the beginning is helping to build trust, and when you know exactly who is doing what and how exactly he's working and so on, it's much easier to work even remotely, because you are not in the situation to clarify each day all the details. It's pretty clear, okay, first of all. And after, of course, being connected to the client business, keeping in mind always the product vision is also helping, because you can have this possibility to propose many solutions, but you always should keep in mind what's the business objective you are working for. So being aligned on the rules, keeping in mind the objectives, and all those elements are included in the collaboration framework.
So when we talk about a collaboration framework, does it? You mentioned this briefly, but these assumptions that I assume that he's going to be responsible for, the UI because it's their company and I'm just providing everything else, or it's going to sit on their network, therefore, they're going to use security and all I need to know is the name of the security protocol, and I get close to delivery and discover they've tweaked the off-the-shelf security package for their own needs or something. Does that kind of stuff get into it? I mean, what are some of the sort of specific roadblocks that you can find that a collaboration framework will resolve or eliminate?
It's exactly such kind of details. So we are putting there roles, responsibilities. We are putting there the main events. Some of them are related to the Agile framework we are using. Some of them are specific to us, for example, steering committees. Okay. Also, we are putting there an alignment, the result of the alignment on the expectations with regards to the data and security. Okay. And here it should be clear who is responsible for data, what are the data flow, and how exactly we are going to secure the data. Okay. And that's also transferred to the dev team, because a part of this would be important to be included in the backlog and implemented after. So also we are making explicit the expectations with regards to the infrastructure and many other elements like that. Okay. And also we are insisting on specific good practices from the IT industry. As I said, so having a technical debt management is a must. Having a systematic code review is a must as well. Okay. having visibility over the flow and over the remaining work is also a must. So such kind of rules are guiding us in the collaboration.
And do you get much resistance to this from clients when you say, hey, we need to have this collaboration framework?
Yeah, we had some resistance initially. We have less now. Mm-hmm. But we understood that the initial resistance was because of us, because we didn't apply from the very beginning the good approach. We tried to deploy everything from the very beginning, and after changing to a more incremental approach, now it works much better because from the marketing we are starting to promise stuff how we are going to work. So we are getting in touch with the main notions. Step by step, we are adding other elements. During the startup phase, we are enriching with specific elements for each project. And in fact, building it step by step, it works much better. Now the resistance is quite low,
So, but a collaboration framework, it can be bigger than just a single project, right? You can use a collaboration framework at different levels to talk about, say, strategic goals, to talk about, product delivery goals, to talk about product development goals. You can have different collaboration frameworks at different levels, and even, I suppose, you could have them even within just your company, not just between you and the client. Is that right?
Yeah. It makes sense, and in fact, for us, when we were speaking about collaboration framework, in fact, it's wide, and it depends really on the services the client is activating. If, for example, the client wants just to have an extension of his team, so of course he will discuss more about rules around skills, about people mood, about turnover and stuff like that. But it's more about people management. If the client will activate the Agile team service, of course, he will discuss more about visibility, about efficiency, and so on, about quality. If the client will activate as well the security governance, will be in charge also on defining the expectations, defining the security policies, and so on. And we are doing this relationship between the service activated, rules to be respected, and the expectations.
Interesting. It's really kind of interesting how these frameworks, these various frameworks we've been discussing in the PentaLive issues over the last few weeks, are all fit into the notion that we're experiencing a new industrial revolution. I mean, depending on which book you're reading, it's the second, the third, or the fourth industrial revolution. But what's inescapable is that we're now operating in a very complex society, not a complicated society, which, I know for newcomers, that's the difference between things that take a long time but follow very strict rules and situations where you just don't know what's coming at you, which is how things are happening today. Basically, the death of Taylorism, the Henry Ford assembly line, where you can no longer take a software project, cut it into 60 pieces and say, okay, in 6 months, we will have the perfect piece of software at the end. Your needs are evolving. You start the thing thinking your need is one thing, and in 60 days, your market has completely evolved and you need the software to be reoriented in a different direction. I just wonder, tell me a little about how a collaboration framework can adapt to things, the unforeseeable.
Yeah. First of all, the agility itself is the first response to the changes you are mentioning, and as I said, the agility is embedded in our collaboration framework. So we are defining together the rules to be respected, because it should be clear who is doing what and how exactly. And after, we are putting in place a mechanism to inspect and adapt, and to assure the governance of this collaboration. And here it's the key element. So whatever we'll define at the beginning, that will change. That will change the need from the product standpoint, that will change from the collaboration point of view, that will change from the required skills and so on. And in fact, for us, it's important to start with clear rules and to have the mechanism to inspect and adapt. And that's the response to the complex situations and to the complex context.
Are there downsides to this? Are there ways to misunderstand or mismanage a collaboration framework that people ought to be thinking about before they sign up to one?
Yeah, in fact, it's always a challenge, the management of the different cultures from different companies. There are companies which are working in a more light way, like if we are talking about small startups and so on. Sometimes they just want quickly to start development without spending time on defining collaboration framework and so on. Sometimes, if you're talking about the big ones, they even may want to have more details in this collaboration framework. And in fact, we have a response for both cases. For the first one, for us, it's okay to start small. And that's why, in this case, we'll prefer to start by having a staff augmentation collaboration based just on the extension of the team, because there we have less rules. Mm-hmm. We can better know each other, and iteratively we'll add more rules and more practices, and that will become a stronger collaboration. In the second case, of course, we have a more sophisticated collaboration framework, and we'll discuss upfront more details. And we'll be able to start with more services activated from the very beginning with more rules.
So let me ask you, if I'm a CTO in a company and I'm not using the concept of a collaboration framework, either with my own team or with external vendors, offshores, etc. What do I need to do to overcome internal resistance to this? How do I get, my legal department says, you're not going to sign a contract unless we know exactly, what's going to be delivered when, because if we don't get what we want, we can't get our money back. Internally, people may say, well, you're not giving me very clear benchmarks. I'm going to HR to say you're not evaluating me based on anything concrete. So I don't know what your expectations are. How does a CTO or somebody in charge of this process deal with that inside their company?
First of all, I would not start by using new words like collaboration framework and so on, because that will create by default some resistance. Yeah. I would start mostly by analyzing the previous experience. And I would say, okay, let's take the last, 5-10 projects, and let's see what are the key success factors and in which cases we failed and why exactly, and step by step identify do's and don'ts, and build some basic rules to be respected after. And after, step by step, to integrate more learnings and so on, that will become initially maybe a guideline, and after that will become something bigger and will touch more departments. So I would go this baby step way.
I think we have a question from our producer, Christelle Lezeau in Brooklyn. Christelle, over to you.
Hello. Hi, Vasile. Yes, we have a question in the comments, which is interesting, I think. How are you measuring the efficiency of certain policies within the framework?
Yeah, very good question. Mm-hmm. For the most of the access we are defining in the collaboration framework, we are also discussing more specifically the expectations, and we are building a maturity model. Okay. For example, if we are talking about alignment on the security, okay, we'll say, okay, what exactly should be done to make sure that we are good at security, and we'll define like 4 steps: insufficient, almost good, good, very good. And after each step, we'll say exactly what should be implemented to say that it's okay at this level. And this way, so we'll have a coverage, a KPI, so the coverage on the defined rules, and that's discussed during the steering meeting and measured, and also discussed the actions. We could say, like, today we are at the insufficient level, but we don't want to invest more, and that could be a good decision. Okay, but should be an assumed decision. That's the main idea.
Okay, I have another question that may summarize what you told before. Is what are the risks of not having a collaboration framework in a project?
Yeah, the first one is that you'll do the same mistakes each time. You could be in a loop, like you have many projects failing during the years for the same reason. That would be the first risk. After, of course, if you are not aligned on the expectations, at the end, usually that's difficult to manage the frustrations, because everyone by default will imagine something, will do some assumptions, and if we'll not treat them, of course we'll have some issues. And of course there is a big risk of not meeting the business objectives.
I think frustration is the main word here. I have experienced it. And I think my last question is, does it happen when the client comes with his own collaboration framework? Did it ever happen, or it's often us that brings it to the table?
We really appreciate when the clients come with his collaboration framework. It means that they are good enough. It means that they thought about many items, and we are happy to integrate from their learnings. Okay, that may happen, for example, when we are working with a company which is specialized, for example, in security. Okay. And if they are specialized in security, we may have a maturity model covering more items, or covering more items because they are in a specific field, like in banking, And we are really happy to integrate their good practices or even rules.
And you said that it was a living document. How often do you recommend to update it? Is it at each retrospective, for those who know like the Scrum method? Like, is it at each retrospective you look at the document, you just try to understand what were like the blockers during these sprints, and you try and update the collaboration framework, or it's less often, or what's the best?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's like the same as asking how often you are doing the risk management in a project. It's a continuous activity. If, for example, today we had a discussion with the client and we changed something, just after I'll update the page. Okay, it's a live document. Of course, having retrospectives, having steering committees, they are also very good occasion to review it, but we don't have to wait for such events.
Okay, that's it for the questions for now. Thank you very much. I'll give you back the baton, Peter. Thank you.
Okay, well, Vasile, thanks very much. Is there anything else we should be asking you about collaboration frameworks, that between the two of us we haven't drained you dry?
Yeah, if I would say just maybe a summary, if you don't mind. So
please.
I would say that, before starting building the product, first of all, you should get aligned on the way you are going to collaborate. And summarizing everything you are deciding together, that's the collaboration framework itself. And the collaboration framework should also cover viewer expectations, the client expectations, the main rules, but it's a must also to put there a governance mechanism. So how you are going to measure the efficiency, okay? And also I would say that it's a must to make sure that the collaboration framework is aligned with other important documents like contractual ones.
Okay, and if people were interested in learning a little more about collaboration frameworks, there's a company, I believe, that created the original concept, right? That has a lot of stuff available on the web that they can download. The Scrum Alliance, I believe, is the document that you showed me that looks at, they have documents about how to use collaboration framework. Are there any other places people could look to get a little more background before they talk to somebody about it?
Yeah, in fact, we did some steps in these directions, and we have organized webinars to support people building their collaboration frameworks. There we'll also share some examples. Of course, learning from all Agile frameworks and so on is always useful.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quickly. Vasile is organizing a webinar in English soon. I'll have to check and confirm the dates, and we'll post on social media everywhere. I think it's next week, but it's early June for sure. I don't know if you have the dates in mind. I think it's around the 3rd of June, but we'll confirm on all social media. And so Vasile...
The 2nd of June.
2nd of June, so I was close. And so Vasile is helping us to understand what should be in a collaboration framework and what are the few steps to take and how to build one. So if you're interested, you can register, and we'll post the link to register on all our channels.
Yep.
Okay, well, Vasile and Christelle, thank you very much for being with us today. Thanks to everyone who's listening. I'm Peter Green in New York with PentaLive from Pentalog. We'll be doing another PentaLive tomorrow morning, actually, New York time at 9 o'clock. Is that right, Christelle? 9 a.m. New Eastern time, which is, 3 p.m. in Europe, and 6 in the morning in California if you're awake. Please join us. I think you can also find these archived on our social media pages. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.